Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's a little button on YouTube that says go live. And I'm supposed to hit that button before I go live. So I've been literally going live by myself with nobody watching. That was awkward. Oh my gosh. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. I'm losing my mind. It's quarantine day 1700, I feel like. And I'm going nuts. I had a fun countdown for this week. I just started playing our SGL Cribs video. I told you about your announcements we had. I talked about the Fortnite tournament. I am so glad I texted my leaders. So, if you're not on the live stream, congratulations, you didn't miss anything. We're 10 minutes into it. I'm just going to get rolling. Here's the 3-minute synopsis. We're off next week because of Mother's Day. Fortnite tournament was awesome. Thanks for joining. I'm seeing y'all in the chat now. Welcome to the live stream. If you have a friend that isn't here, go text them the link and tell them they need to be here. Small group leaders do the same. And we're going to go right into our message here in a second. But before then, we're going to go into our new episode of SGL Cribs featuring our boy, Tim. So check out his crib while I go take a break. What's up, guys? This is Tim. I'm here in my crib, or actually my parents' crib. And we've all been hanging out in our houses a lot for this quarantine, so I'm just going to show you around the house a little bit, what I've been doing and where I hang out in my house. So right now we're in the lanai. This is kind of like a Four Seasons room, and I come out here a lot. So right behind me here I have this table. Typically, I've sat here to do some Bible studies, video chats, or come out here in the morning. Outside all these windows is a big field, and so I come and watch all the animals in the morning. Just look outside, watch the sunset, see what's going on while I read my Bible or something. So yeah, this is a really cool room. Use it for a lot of things. So out here is the kitchen and dining room area. This coffee bar here is one of the most important parts of the house. I use it every morning. I set up my coffee maker before I wake up, grab a cup of coffee, and I come over to my favorite spot here, the fireplace. If you guys didn't know, I love fireplaces, and I've always laid by them and sat by them for my whole life. So when I wake up in the morning, right now, the first place I go is to this fire. I grab my coffee, bring my Bible over here, and I will just sit as close as I can to the fireplace on this bench, do my little time with God in the morning, and then move on from there. So let's keep going through the house here, downstairs, give you a tour of some of the other stuff that I use commonly. If you can't tell, I like hunting and being outside, and that's reflected in our house. So down here, I think this is an important part of the house. This is my deer from Missouri a couple years ago. My first ever deer, actually. But that was a really fun experience. A picture of our family business, kind of an aerial view. This is also where I spend a lot of time working. By the way, this is my dog Buster over here. He is biting on my camera person. He's a little bit crazy, but we love him. Okay, so anyways, this is the little living room area downstairs. I use these gymnastic rings all the time. Right now I can't go to the gym, if you didn't know. You can't go to gyms because of coronavirus. So I use these gymnastic rings, do all kinds of fun stuff. I have a few little weights down there on the floor. And then sometimes I'll run around the field or something. So I have different ways to exercise. And then also, we just kind of watch movies down here, and it's a fun place to hang out. Another fireplace. You can tell I like fireplaces. Let's move into the last room here. Drag Buster along with us. Guys, trivia question here. This pulpit that's sitting in our little church decoration area, where does that come from? I'd be impressed if somebody came up to me and told me, where does that pulpit come from? This is where I end the day, every day, hopefully. This is my bedroom. kind of reflects some of the stuff that I like to do. There's kind of outdoor scenery, a little fishing picture here, Fishers of Men. It's a cool Bible verse. And then I got a lot of books, and then, of course, my pillow pet. My mom forces me to keep that, so I keep it around, and I also really like it. So, yeah, that's my crib. I hope you guys are enjoying your quarantine, finding stuff to do, and I hope we can all be together soon.
It's a pillow, it's a pet, it's a pillow pet. Any of you guys else have a pillow pet? Nah, just Tim? Cool. We're going to get started tonight. We're going to dive right into our message so that we can get you guys off into your small groups. But let me start with this question. Do you remember the birds and the bees talk? Do you remember when your parents gave you the birds and the bees talk? Or maybe your parents weren't the ones that gave you it. I don't know. Do you remember how awkward that conversation was? I'm not going to go into details. I'm not going to give you the birds and bees talk unless you need it. We're not going to do that over YouTube. But the birds and the bees talk, super awkward, right? I remember sitting down for the first time when my parents gave me that talk. I was in like 5th grade because we were having the class was coming up. And so we had the talk and it was super awkward. And there's other awkward conversations we have with family members. I remember one time my sister called me out for being a player, and I was like, I'm not a player. And I was in like underclassmen. I was probably like a freshman at this point. I remember my sister going, you're such a player. And I'm like, I'm not a player. I don't know what you're talking about. And then for some reason, she got a hold of my phone and showed my mom. And I was texting like 8 girls. They were all friends. They were all normal friends. But, they all were also girls that if they were to like me back, I'd be like, yeah, we could date. Like, that'd be awesome. And it's just awkward conversations. There are some conversations that are just straight awkward. And then there's conversations in life that are just plain difficult to have with a family member. I remember talking about the kind of tough conversations you have when there is conflict, right? When there's conflict between you and a family member and someone's been hurt or they've made a bad decision or they need to apologize. I'll be really interested to see when Brooks is older and is a teenager or maybe even just, not even a teenager yet, but, older where you can like have those conversations. I'll be really curious to see what type of conversations they are. So I've got a question. You need to be active in the chat. I need your answers here. The question is this: how often do you have tough conversations with your family members? How often do you have tough conversations with your family members? Is it sometimes? Is it often? Or is it never? So is it often, sometimes, or never? Is it, you're like, we have those tough conversations all the time. Like often. We have those conversations. And then maybe for some of you, it's like, we only have those conversations sometimes. It's not all the time, but it's like not like we totally disregard them. It's like sometimes, maybe when they're like forced, you get to a point where it's like, yo, it's about to go down. We're having this conversation right now. Maybe for some of you, it's like never. We never have those conversations. It's awkward. We don't want to embrace it. We don't want to talk about it. It's just weird. So which one are you? Are you often, sometimes, or never? And then here's my follow-up question. How much do you enjoy having those conversations? How much do you enjoy having those conversations? Are you the type of person that's like, I love them, I'm totally relaxed, bring it on? Maybe for some of you, you're like, they stress me out a little bit, but I can handle them. Like, I go in a little sweaty, but the time we're done, I'm good, I'm cool. Or maybe for some of you, you're like, I can't do it. Where's the escape button? I need to get out, help. No, I don't do conflict well. I don't do tough conversations well. Which one is that for you? Where do you fall when it comes to having those tough conversations? Do you love it? Do you not love it? Do you sometimes love it? Does it stress you out? Does it not? Like where do you fall? You see, we've been saying for the last couple weeks that every family is like an atypical family, right? We're in our week 3 of our series, Atypical, and we've learned and we've been talking about that no family is perfect. And because of that, we are all atypical. We're not normal. And because no family is perfect, every family occasionally has to have tough conversations. Maybe those tough conversations happen because there's a difference in opinion, right? You don't agree with mom. You say, Mom, I will be fine if I play Xbox 17 hours a day. Mom, let me go to that party or let me go to the friends, but mom says no, dad says no. Maybe it's an unwise choice that someone made. Maybe it was a sibling that decided to pull a prank on you. Or maybe it was a parent that said something that really shouldn't have been said to you. Maybe there's hurt feelings. Or maybe it's just a misunderstanding. You said one thing or you thought one thing and a family member said or thought what's another or said something else. And it just needs to be addressed. You see, typical families, they either avoid having these conversations or they have them, but they don't go very well. But atypical families, not normal families, not typical families, on the other hand, they approach their tough family conflicts and conversations very differently. For the last couple of weeks, we've been saying that your atypical family can be used by God to do amazing atypical things. But the question is how? Last week, we talked about how atypical families pray for each other. And when there's conflict, we should be praying. We should be the first one to pray. And so today, we'll discover a second atypical thing that families do. So far in the series, we've met 2 families. The first one was this. It was the family of Adam and Eve, the world's very first family. And then last week, we learned about the family of Abraham. See, both of these families were atypical, and they were imperfect in their very unique, different ways. Disobedience to God, lies, murder, conflict, disagreements that make all the stories of these families far from perfect. You see, today, I want to introduce you to another family. See, this story is about the family of Isaac and Rebekah and their sons, Jacob and Esau. Isaac was the son of Abraham, which means that Jacob and Esau were Abraham's grandsons. So we talked about Abraham last week. Well, now we're going to talk about his son and his grandsons. But Jacob and Esau's story isn't the story of like this brotherly love, perfect twins that love each other. It was an imperfect relationship from the very start. In Genesis, it talks about how Rebekah was feeling so when she was pregnant with these two. The two were in the womb. They were they moved so much. They describes them as fighting in the womb, so much so that she says, I don't even want to live anymore. This pain is unbearable. These kids won't stop fighting, like in the womb. Well, eventually, obviously, they were born and they got older, and Jacob goes into something and kind of gives some context of our story. Jacob goes into, he tricks his brother into giving him his birthright, which is something like super valuable in this world, in this culture, in this time. This birthright is like something that Esau deserved because he was the first one out of the two that was born. He was the firstborn son. He deserved this birthright, which is basically an inheritance. Crazy story. If you haven't read it before, go read it. But today we're going to hop in right in Genesis chapter 27, and I am going to be reading from a translation that is kind of reads more like a story. So I'm going to read it here. We're going to read all of chapter 27. Here we go. When Isaac had become an old man and was nearly blind, so again, Isaac is dad. This is Abraham's son. When Isaac had become an old man and was nearly blind, he called his eldest son Esau and said, My son. Yes, father. I am an old man, he said. I might die any day now. Do me a favor. Get your quiver and arrows, which is for a bow and arrow, and your bow, and go out into the country and hunt me some game. Then fix me a hearty meal, the kind that you know that I like. Bring it to me so that I can give you my personal blessing before I die. I don't know about you, but if dad was like, hey, dude, I'm going to die. I need some grub. Go get some. It'd be a little weird. But anyways, Rebekah, starting verse 5, Rebekah was eavesdropping as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. As soon as Esau had gone off to the country to hunt game for his father, Rebekah spoke to her son Jacob. I just overheard your father talking with your brother Esau. He said, bring me some game and fix me a hearty meal so that I can eat and bless you with God's blessing before I die. Now, my son, listen to me. Do what I tell you. Go to the flock and get me 2 young goats. Pick the best. I'll prepare them into a hearty meal, the kind that your father loves. Then you'll take it to your father. He'll eat and bless you before he dies. Okay, talk about like weird tension. Mom and dad are split. Like they're not divorced. They're not even like split in their marriage. But mom's basically having one of the twins steal something from the other twin. Dysfunction. But mother, Jacob said, my brother Esau is a hairy man and I have smooth skin. What happens if my father touches me? He'll think I'm playing games with him. I'll bring down a curse on myself instead of a blessing. If it comes to that, said his mother, I'll take the curse on myself. Now just do what I say. Go and get the goats. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she cooked a hearty meal, the kind his father loved so much. Rebekah took the dress-up clothes of her older son Esau and put them on her younger son Jacob. She took the goat skins and covered his hands and smooth nape of his neck. Then she placed the hearty meal she had fixed and fresh bread she had baked into the hands of her son Jacob. He went to his father and said, my father. Yes, he said. Which son are you? Remember, father's blind. Jacob answered his father, I am your firstborn son Esau. I did what you told me. Come now, sit up and eat my game so that you can give me your personal blessing. Isaac said, so soon? How did you get it so quickly? Because your God cleared the way for me, Jacob said. Isaac said, come close, son. Let me touch you. Are you really my son Esau? So Jacob moved close to his father Isaac. Isaac felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's. But as he was about to bless him, he pressed him. You're sure you are my son Esau? Yes, I am. Isaac said, bring the food so I can eat of my son's game and give you my personal blessing. Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. He also brought him wine, and he drank. Then Isaac said, come close, son, and kiss me. He came close and kissed him, and Isaac smelled the smell of his clothes. Finally, he blessed him. Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the open country, blessed by God. May God give you of heaven's dew and earth's bounty of grain and wine. Make peoples serve you and nations honor you. You will master your brothers, and your mother's sons will honor you. Those who curse you will be cursed. Those who bless you will be blessed. So that's the blessing that he gave to his son, who he thought was Esau, but actually was Jacob. And then right after Isaac had blessed Jacob and Jacob had left, Esau showed up, great, from his hunt, and he also had prepared a hearty meal. He came to his father and said, let my father get up and eat of his son's game, that he may give me his personal blessing. His father Isaac said, and who are you? I'm your son. Duh, your firstborn Esau. Isaac started to tremble, shaking violently. He said, then who hunted game and brought it to me? I finished the meal just now before you walked in, and I blessed him. He's blessed for good. Can't go back on a blessing. Esau, hearing his father's words, sobbed violently and most bitterly and cried to his father, my father, can't you also bless me? Your brother, he said, came here falsely and took your blessing. Esau said, not for nothing was he named Jacob, the heel. Twice now he's tricked me. First he took my birthright, right? We talked about that earlier. And now he's taken my blessing. He begged, haven't you kept back any blessing for me? Isaac answered Esau, I've made him your master, and all his brothers, his servants, and lavish grain and wine on him. I've given it all away. What's left for you, my son? But don't you have just one blessing for me, father? Oh, bless me, my father. Bless me. Esau sobbed inconsolably. Isaac said to him, you'll live far from earth's bounty, remote from heaven's dew. You'll live by your sword, hand to mouth, and you'll serve your brother. But when you can't take it anymore, you'll break loose and you'll run free. Esau seethed in anger against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He brooded, the time for mourning for my father's death is close, and then I will kill my brother Jacob. When these words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she called her younger son Jacob and said, your brother Esau is plotting vengeance against you. He's going to kill you. Son, listen to me. Get out of here. Run for your life to Haran, to my brother Laban. Live with him for a while until your brother cools down, until his anger subsides and he forgets what you did to him. Then I'll send for you and bring you back. Why should I lose both of my sons the first day? Whoo! Okay, I'm just going to take one quick drink. That's nuts, right? Like that story, that family is messed up. It's super messed up. There's competition, there's jealousy, there's deception, there's conspiracies, there's costumes, there's heartbreak, there's soup. Soup. Nothing ever goes right with hot soup. There's a lot going on here. But here's the bottom line. With his mom's help, Jacob tricked his brother into giving him something of great value, right? The birthright. With his mom's help, Jacob tricked his dying father into giving him a gift that was never intended for him, being the blessing. With his mom's help, instead of owning up to his bad behavior, making things right, Jacob ran away, again, thanks to mom. Can you imagine being a member of this family? Like, I know our families are really jacked up, and a lot of us think that our families have problems, but this family, this is some new level crap. That's a lot of pain. It's a lot of deceit. It's a lot of cruelty for one family. But that's not the end of Jacob and Esau's story. Years later, Jacob is married and has children of his own. But he hasn't spoken to Esau since the day that he ran away. And now he's on his way to Esau's city. So knowing Esau has every reason to hate him and probably even kill him, Jacob sends messengers. He sends messengers to Esau with plenty of gifts, hoping to show Esau that he's sorry. So we're going to pick up in Genesis chapter 32, and it says this. Then Jacob sent messengers on ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir and Edom. He instructed them, "Tell my master Esau this, a message from your servant Jacob. I've been staying with Laban and couldn't get away until now. I've acquired cattle and donkeys and sheep, also men and women servants. I'm telling you all this, my master, hoping for your approval." The messengers came back to Jacob and said, "We talked to your brother Esau, and he's on his way to meet you. But he has 400 men with him." Jacob was scared, very scared. Panicked, he divided his people, his sheep, his cattle, and camels into two camps. He thought, if Esau comes on the first camp and attacks it, then the other camp has a chance to get away. Okay, he's like, hey, I'm going to cover my butt here. I'm going to split everything in half. If he comes for one group, the other group can get away. That way I'm only losing half. I'm not losing everything. And then Jacob prayed. He said, God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, God who told me, go back to your parents' homeland and I'll treat you well. I don't deserve all the love and loyalty you've shown me. When I left there, wow. When I left here and crossed the Jordan, I only had the clothes on my back. And now look at me. Two camps? Save me, please, from the violence of my brother, my angry brother. I'm afraid he'll come and attack me, attack us all. He'll attack me. He'll attack the mothers and the children. You yourself said, I will treat you well. I'll make your descendants like the sands of the sea, far too many to count. He slept the night there, and then he prepared a present for his brother Esau from his possessions. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams. 30 camels with their nursing young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, 10 male donkeys. Put a servant in charge of each herd and said, go ahead of me and keep a healthy space between each herd. So basically he's like, I'm just going to throw anything and everything I can at him so that he doesn't kill me. Then he instructed the first one out. When my brother Esau comes close and asks, who is your master? Where are you going? Who owns these? Answer him like this. Your servant Jacob. They are a gift to my master Esau. He's on his way. He gave the same instructions to the second servant and to the third, to each in turn, as they set out with their herds. Say, your servant Jacob is on his way. He thought, I will soften him with a succession of gifts. Then when he sees me face to face, maybe he'll be glad to welcome me. Okay. So I've had tough conversations with my families before, right? Tough conversations. They're awkward. That's why they're tough. But nothing like the conversation that Jacob and Esau are about to have. Never have I. I don't think most of you probably have not had these types of conversations either. Jacob knows that he needs to make things right with his brother Esau, but the reality is who knows what Esau's thinking? Does he want to kill him still? Is he going to forgive him? What is he going to do? So when conflict happens, but you're too stubborn or you're too angry or you're too ashamed or maybe you're too afraid to have tough conversations with your family, it leaves room for really ugly things to grow. And so after years of silence, Esau might hate Jacob. He might have even wanted him dead. And we pick up in chapter 33 at verse 4, and it says this. Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. Esau's coming at him, 400 dudes behind him. He divided the children between Leah and Rachel and the two maidservants. He put the maidservants out in front, Leah and her children next, Rachel and Joseph last. He led the way, and as he approached his brother, he bowed 7 times, honoring him. But Esau ran up and embraced him. He held him tight, and he kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked around and saw the women and children, and he said, "And who are these with you?" Jacob says, "The children that God saw fit to bless me with." Then the maidservants came up with their children and bowed. Then Leah and her children also bowing. And finally, Joseph and Rachel came up and bowed to Esau. Esau then asked, "And what was the meaning of all those herds that I met?" Well, Jacob said, "I was hoping that they would pave the way for my master to welcome me." Esau said, "Oh, brother, I have plenty of everything. Keep what is yours for yourself." Jacob said, "Please, if you can find it in your heart to welcome me, accept these gifts. When I saw your face, it was as the face of God smiling on me. Accept the gifts I have brought for you. God has been good to me, and I have more than enough." Jacob urged the gifts on him, and Esau accepted. Then Esau said, let's start out on our way. I'll take the lead." But Jacob said, "My master can see that the children are frail, and the flocks and herds are nursing, making for slow going. If I push them too hard, even for a day, I'd lose all of them. So, master, you go on ahead of your servant, while I take it easy at the pace of my flocks and my children. I will catch up with you." Okay. So amazingly, surprisingly, Esau didn't let the years of separation from his brother fill him with hatred and anger. Instead, Esau wanted to have a relationship with Jacob again. But Jacob and Esau's conversation could have gone very, very differently. Very differently. He could have came with like one swipe of a sword and Jacob was dead. He could have came with 400 men all loaded with weapons and they're all gone. But it makes sense. It makes sense that Jacob was afraid to meet Esau. It makes sense. He probably was ashamed to admit the wrong that he had done after all those years, but he was also afraid that Esau might retaliate. Esau could have screamed at Jacob. He could have attacked him. He could have even killed him. That would have been understandable, right? Jacob had stolen so much from Esau, his birthright, the blessing of his father. I mean, he stole everything. And he never made it right. Against all odds, Esau didn't show up to kill Jacob. He showed up with open arms, ready to have a conversation. Esau's willingness to have a conversation with Jacob, even after what Jacob did to him, is pretty amazing. And it was absolutely essential to healing their relationship. Many years after Jacob and Esau reconciled, Jesus preached a sermon to a group of his followers. And part of that sermon was about having tough conversation. And it says this in Matthew 18, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault, between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector." You see, God loves to see us living in peace with each other. He loves to see people living in peace. And I think if we're honest right now, this probably is not the best time, or it probably is not the time where we can say we're living in peace. We're not. But God loves to see that, especially in our families. He loves to see us living in peace, and not that fake type of peace where we smile at each other, but we secretly hate each other, or we secretly hold grudges against one another. You see, like when we learned 2 weeks ago, when we read the story of Adam and Eve, God designed us to be in relationships with one another. He designed us to be in relationship with him. And so when we refuse to have tough conversations with each other, it separates us from one another. And when we hang on to bitterness and anger, it keeps us from having a closer relationship with God. See, throughout this series, we've been saying that if you want God to use your family to do atypical things, sometimes you have to be the first person in your family to do something atypical. That's what Esau did. And it's what Jesus teaches us to do. He teaches us that when we've hurt somebody or we've been hurt by someone in our family, we need to respond in the atypical way. Because the typical response is staying angry and avoiding each other and getting bitter. But Esau did the atypical thing. He met with Jacob. He had the tough conversation. And this might seem so simple, but it's so atypical. And here's our big point for tonight. Our big idea is this. Not so typical families, so atypical families have tough conversations. If we want to be atypical, we have to have tough conversations. You see, just like a tough conversation has changed Jacob and Esau's family for the better, being willing to have tough conversations with your family can change your family for the better too. Every family has conflict. Every family has conflicts that they struggle with, that they struggle to solve, that they struggle to make right. But atypical families choose to have tough conversations in order to stay in relationships with each other. You see, here's what having tough conversations does. It makes room for healing and repentance. It helps us learn to communicate and understand each other's perspectives. It gives us a chance to create a solution, something that benefits everybody. But how do you have tough conversations? Having tough conversations with a family member doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as asking, hey, can we talk about what happened? Maybe it's as simple as just being patient when they share their feelings and perspective. Maybe for some of us, it's really actually listening to their point of view, right? Not just listening to give an answer, but actually listening to understand. Maybe it's being honest about what you think and feel, even when it's hard. Maybe, let's be honest, maybe it's just admitting that we're wrong. Think about right now. Think about a conflict that you have with a family member. Now imagine how that conflict can be transformed if you were willing to have a tough conversation about it. How do you think a tough conversation could change your attitude or change your perspective or change the person that you're fighting with? Or maybe how do you think a tough conversation could begin to change your family's pattern of behavior in the long term? I know it can be scary to have tough conversations, especially when it comes to our family or our friends. Our family members have more power than anyone to make us feel safe and to make us feel loved. But the opposite is also true. They also have more power than anyone to hurt us. If there's a tough conversation that you want or you need to have with a family member, maybe we can practice that. Practice having those tough conversations here first. You see, here on Sunday nights, we might not be your family by blood, but we are still family. Even when we can't get together in person. Even when we have to do YouTube Live and Zoom chats. We're not family by blood, but we are still family. In your small groups, in just a bit, you're going to be able to play or go through an exercise of doing some role playing about having tough conversations. And you don't necessarily have to do it. I told your small group leaders that it's up to them whether or not they want to do it. But it's an exercise where you can practice that. Practice having those tough conversations with people who are not going to judge you, that they're not going to react in a certain way, but just so that you can at least get it off your chest. As you leave today, ask yourself, are there any tough conversations that I should have with my family? See, when conflicts happen, typical families, they get bitter. They avoid resolving their conflicts, but not so typical families have tough conversations, ones that help them heal, ones that help them grow. If you commit to resolving your conflicts with your family through tough conversations, imagine with me how God might be able to use your family to do atypical things in this world. Let me pray for you guys, and I've got one more announcement before we go to small groups. Let's pray. God, we are just so grateful for who you are. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come together, even though it's not in person. That we can still be involved in community. God, we just thank you for your word, that thousands of years ago, that these stories were able to be passed on, these events were able to be passed on so that we can learn from them, knowing that your word, the Bible, is completely inspired by you and is void of anything that is false. God, thank you for that we can learn from that. God, I pray that we have the boldness to have tough conversations, that even though they're tough and they're hard, we're able to have them because we know that they lead us to healing and growth. God, we love you. Thank you for all you do. In your son's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Hey, real quick, guys, before you head off to small groups, I want to let you know, so this is crazy. We were talking about it as small group leaders. This would have been the last normal night of Sunday nights, right? Because we're off next week for Mother's Day, and then we'd had our big end of the year celebration. But because COVID-19, because of coronavirus, we are going to keep going Sunday night. So we're off next week. We've got some meetings and some stuff figuring out this week, but we are planning a fun summer. We'll let you guys know about more details. But my point is this. Sorry, rabbit trail. My point is this. Your small group leaders are starting. We're starting to figure out who's coming back, who's not coming back, who's taking a season of rest, who is staying on. We have those conversations, so it's super fun. It's super great. But here's my question for you. Who do you think would be an awesome small group leader? Who do you think in your life would be an awesome small group leader? Who do you think at our church, has to be at our church, would be an awesome small group leader? If you think that you know who you think would be an awesome small group leader, you should send their name to me. Because the reality is we want people to be awesome small group leaders. One of the ways to be an awesome small group leader is to make sure that you're liked by students. So if you have an idea, if you have a person who's like, man, this person would be awesome to be a small group leader, send their name on to me. I would love that. We are starting a recruiting season for our small group leaders next year. So anyways, that's all I got. Who would be an awesome small group leader? Let us know. Not in the chat. Just text it to me. DM me. Do what you got to do. That's all I got for tonight. I love you guys. We'll see you in Zoom. Hit the link in the description below. Make sure you hit the bell so that you're notified when we go live. Like and subscribe. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to be a YouTuber. That's it. I'll see you guys in small groups.